Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Oh, there's one more person in the waiting room. Let me get them in. Okay, while they join, welcome everyone. If you haven't done so, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat so we can see kind of who's here, where everyone's from. We thank you for joining us today on this Tuesday afternoon. For some of you, might still be morning for some of you other folks. But we want to go ahead and get today started. So today's webinar is going to be our third kind of video in our series we've been running, basically focusing on what's next, looking at sustainability from different approaches. And today we're really going to hone in on kind of the introduction to sustainability basics. So that's going to be our focus for today. You guys have already been putting your names in the chat, so I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but welcome everyone. We have a couple ECS folks on the line today that are going to be part of this presentation. And as always, if you have any questions throughout, please do throw them in the chat, and we will make sure to have time for questions at the end as well. Today's video will be recorded, and a recording will be sent out in a follow-up email for anyone who has to hop off early. We totally understand, so please do what you have to do, but we're so glad you are here with us today. All right, with that, we're going to start today with some polling questions. We kind of want to see where everyone's coming to us from, and just kind of gauging where everyone's at in the sustainability kind of planning process. So you should have some questions up on your screen now. The first one is, does your coalition have a sustainability plan? So a simple yes, no, unsure. The next one will be, if you have a sustainability plan, have you looked at it within the past year? Just a simple, even look at, review, glance over. And then the third question is, if you have a sustainability plan, have you actually updated it or revised it within the last 6 months? So we're going to go ahead and see where everyone's sitting there and share the results with you all so you can see. So it looks like we have about 6 out of 11 people, so 55 of you said yes, you do have a sustainability plan, so that's good. You know you have one. A couple people said no, and there's a couple that said unsure. That's okay. Our next question was then, have you looked at it within the last year? And only 40% of you said you have. So that's kind of interesting, I think, to note as well, that over half of you said you haven't even looked at it in the past year. So I think that's something to note as well. And then lastly, we have, if you have a sustainability plan, have you updated it or revised it? So this is important as well. You know, this is a living, breathing document, so it's really important that we're updating and revising it. And it looks like only 2 people reported yes, they have updated it or revised it in the last 6 months. All right. 44% said no, and 33% said unsure. So that's kind of the results we're looking at today. So it sounds like most of you are in the right place. Today we are going to be focusing on looking at sustainability strategies and kind of that introductory level, so we can kind of help you guys hopefully prepare to look at those sustainability plans and update and revise as needed. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over now to Laura, who's going to get us started.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So obviously today we're here to talk about sustainability and sustainability strategies. And this builds on the previous webinars that we've had, kind of talking about emergency situations when we may need to look at, getting by when there's funding disruptions, and taking that from, okay, let's have a sustainability plan that is more long-term. And if we have a sustainability plan, what can we do about it? So we're going to focus on this webinar, just some baseline information about sustainability, with another webinar plan to go a little bit more in depth. So we talked about sustainability plans, if we have one, if we don't have one. One thing that sustainability includes or may include would be expanding your focus. So if you just want to kind of put some answers or put some responses in the chat, how many of you have expanded your focus areas beyond your original scope? In terms of your coalition or your organization, for example, maybe you have expanded from your 2 DFC substances into other substances or areas. So let's talk in the chat. What does that look like? Or has anybody here done that as part of their organization? All right, so expanding from DFC to mental health, absolutely. Has anybody else expanded in different ways? Development of protective factors, so maybe even if it's still substance use related, focusing on risk factors, mental health first aid, also suicide prevention as well. Yes, that's definitely become a greater issue. Expanding substances, moving more into the opioid arena, absolutely. So sometimes sustainability might look a little different. It may mean expanding our mission or expanding into different areas that maybe we've received an investment in, or maybe we have received some sort of opportunity that we, that allows us to do more work that's similar to what we're currently doing, but also gives us the funding piece as well. So kind of the way that we envisioned that was as a means for sustainability, expanding your lane. So maybe right now we're focused on public health and prevention, and we've got 3 lanes that we're looking at, or maybe we're branching off into different areas and creating new lanes, not just focusing on substance use, but also going into mental health or nutrition and wellness, environmental health. And I can definitely say that at ECS, we have seen that take place in different ways with different clients. So just something to think about as we go through this webinar. Sustainability basics. So just to give you an overview, what is sustainability? I think we all get that, but basically we want to be able to stay around long enough to see the desired changes in the community. We want to see healthy youth. We want to see youth that are not using substances or preventing the risk of those substances. We want to see a mentally healthy community. All of these things play into sustainability and why we want to keep doing the work that we are currently doing. Just a little bit of things just to kind of get us thinking about what do we need to sustain. And I think we all know that it goes beyond those dollars to be able to fund operations and activities. So of course we need people, in our field. It's the people that are doing the work more than anything else. Maybe it's the model that we use in terms of how we bring community together and solve problems, the relevant work. So whether it's substance use prevention or mental health or any number of things. Of course, we need the dollars to make those happen, but then also looking at our strategies and interventions and how can we keep those sustainable, whether we're doing them or maybe it's somebody else in the community that we're passing that along to.
So we start thinking about sustainability and, what does that look like? And as Laura said, it's really about staying in the game long enough to make a difference or to see the change that we want. And that doesn't mean that we're planning to be around in perpetuity, right? Sometimes we have planned obsolescence. Sometimes we have a very distinct end goal of what success looks like and what our exit plan is going to look like. But regardless of if we're looking for, in perpetuity, if we're looking at what is our exit going to look like and how do we know, there are certain strategies that we do deploy. And we really break it into really 3 areas, and with a 4th one that's related to one of them. It's really ask, share, charge, and then earn as part of that charge strategy, right? Another way to think about it is beg, borrow, steal, right? Not that you're going to steal anything, but this idea that, we ask for things, we share things, and then we try to do things that we can actually earn money or capture some sort of income around. And we're going to delve into this as we into each one of these a little bit more detail and give you guys an opportunity to share what you've been doing, your ideas around it in small group. So let's go ahead and jump right into ask. So ask is the one that we're typically most familiar with, right? And this is one that we're really good about doing, which is we ask people for resources. We ask people for money. We typically are really super familiar with grants and looking at the people online and look at your responses. A lot of our, expanding lane or creating new lanes has been really focused on, okay, what funding opportunity is out there? What funding opportunity matches with our sustainability plan, or what funding opportunity matches with our strategic plan? How do we go about finding those grants, right? We're not always great as coalitions about doing fundraisers or getting individual donors. And this, because it's a little different type of ask. It's hosting a dinner, it's doing a 5K, it's doing a hot chocolate walk or some sort of event that brings money in. I know some of you do that, particularly I'm thinking of the Sylvania Prevention Alliance. They do a couple ongoing fundraisers that are solely focused on bringing additional resources, unrestricted resources into their organization. And some of you may have considered individual donors, right? This is something that we see a lot with the nonprofits, where they begin looking at and going after people who have an interest in the area, may have the ability to give a certain amount of money on an ongoing basis. And for some of you, it might be just one time as well. I'm not sure if anybody actually has United Way funding in the people that we work with, but this idea of shared fundraising, the shared fundraising model, which is United Way or Community Cares or some version of that. And typically with that, there is an application process, right? Most United Ways make you apply to become a United Way affiliate agency before you get their pool dollars. And some United Ways allow you to attract United Way funding as long as you get people to say that through whatever their employment sponsorship is, allow you to check that box or allow you to put your name in that. And so if that idea of shared fundraising is an interest to you, you can reach out to your local United Way chapter, reach out to your local Community Cares chapter and say, okay, how do I go about making this a reality? And then, of course, something that's relatively newer is crowdsource funding. And typically, when we think about crowdsource funding, we think of fundraising for individuals, right? Somebody got into a car accident, somebody passed away, somebody has to have surgery. We typically think of crowdsource funding as individual oriented, not organizational oriented. But we're seeing more and more this being a source of income or a source of fundraising for organizations. Well, they'll set a target, they'll put themselves on a GoFundMe or one of those platforms and set a target out for crowdsource funding. And then the last one, again, is corporate sponsorships, right? There are corporations and companies out there that will match individual donors. They'll do a one-to-one match. So if I, as an individual, give $1 to the Virgil's Coalition or NC4Y, my company will match that $1. For every $1 I donate, they'll match another $1. So there's both matching corporate sponsorships and then singular corporate sponsorships. We tend to find that the matching corporate sponsorships tends to be easier to get into than getting an Owens Corning or an Owens Illinois or Ford or one of the big companies to give you direct donations. And that's also when you begin thinking about these types of things, is that who's on your coalition, who's on your board, what connections do they have? Do they have an employee giving program? Do they have a corporate giving program? Have you ever asked that question of your coalition members? Have you ever asked that question of your board members? What access do they have from to their workplaces? And so those are, Asks is the one that's kind of our go-to because it's many of us started with DFCs or started with grant funding, but it's not just grants from an Ask perspective. There's other opportunities in this strategy that we can explore to begin diversifying that aren't just that going from one grant to another grant to another grant. Fundraising, crowdsourcing, shared fundraising, sponsorships, that all becomes part of the diverse and necessary mix for long-term for sustainability in general. And so if we're thinking like we really like the Ask strategy, that's where we want to stay, that's where we want to keep ourselves, then we need to figure out how we diversify inside of that and diversify those mechanisms. So I'll turn it over to Jess to turn us loose in some small groups.
It looks like we have everyone back. So is there a group who would like to start for kind of sharing what you guys discussed in your group, or do I have to call on a group?
I'll go.
Okay, sounds good, Janine.
One of our members has written letters to Rotary for an ask and has received monetary responses that way, and they may have asked for a presentation to Rotary so that the members knew more of what the coalition was doing and other kinds of campaigns for fundraising. And then another member shared that they may do an ask even at tabling events if people would be willing to make a donation. Our coalition really hasn't done any kind of asking yet, but I'm having to put this plan together because I know it's coming up. So that's really why I'm here.
Yeah, you're here to get all the good details. I get it.
Yep.
And all the good ideas. Awesome. Cool. That's very different, definitely. Okay, it looks like Howard, you were spokesperson for the one of the other groups. If you want to go ahead and go next.
Sure. One of the things that we kind of talked about but didn't directly address because of the limited time was what do prevention strategies, what does modern prevention science look like, and how do policies currently in Washington affects sustainability? What programs are we looking to sustain? Who are we looking to sustain them with? And do those organizations see us as partners? And what value do they attach to it? Do they see us as our expertise, or are they looking for us to administer those programs? Finding money today is easy if you're relevant and address the why and the needs of the communities you serve.
Yeah, I like your guys' scope. It was a little more, I think, like a broader scope, but I definitely agree. There's money out there. It's aligning it with what they want you to align it with and meeting the needs, definitely.
And bake sales don't work.
All right. It looks like Emily said we didn't designate a spokesperson. We talked a lot about using B Corps and other companies' individual skill sets that will allow us to borrow them for a project. Okay. Does anyone else want to add on anything from that group? All right.
Jerry, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I was going to say, yeah, Jerry, you unmuted. Did you?
Yeah, I'll even speak on every getting a loan exec from a corporation on their payroll to work on a project for the coalition. The other one we talked about was going deeper with our board. Who do they know? They may not. Ideally, they would like to pony up a little bit of money themselves, but they may have some doors that they can open on behalf of the coalition. And you earlier mentioned the opening session about United Way donor designate for the coalition for the project they're working on. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. No, yeah, I think it's very good points. I think sometimes we think of our board as individuals when they definitely could have other deeper pockets, people that they know.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely. I think that's a good one to highlight. Awesome. All righty. Well, I will hand it back to Deacon to get us into our next strategy.
It's interesting that Jerry brought up the loan executive idea, right? Because when you think about sharing, we typically think about, we can share supplies, or we can share space, or, we can get in-kind contributions, people will do stuff for us. But this idea of, a leveraged staff position or shared staff position is not unheard of, right? We've done it, when I was still working and running coalitions, we shared a couple different staff positions with other nonprofits or with governmental agencies, because we could come up with half the money, and another organization come up with the other half the money. We'd share the position, right? And so it's this idea that are there assets that we can share in beyond space, beyond equipment, beyond materials, and beyond volunteers. And so really think about when we're looking at coalition leadership, coalition staffing, it's another opportunity to be thinking about who else has a mission alignment with us, who else has some skin in the game, for lack of a better word, if we were to go away. Right? Who's going to suffer? One of the things that Howard talked about was the school district. I know they have a really close relation to the school districts, and sometimes schools don't want to see the coalitions go away because of the stuff that they do for them or with them. And so sometimes schools become a very logical partner to provide shared staffing or shared resources for. Others it might be other community organizations such as treatment agencies or even community action agencies, if that's even possible or feasible in the community. So as we're thinking about share, we're pretty good about identifying our volunteers, but we're not always really good about identifying the other opportunities that we can share with, whether it be space, whether it be materials, whether it be other positions. This is these are my favorite, right? So my favorite is charge. I think it's the one we don't do a great job at. I think it's the one that's really a low hanging fruit for all of us, because we have things that we can do that have value, that we can monetize, that we can actually charge people for. Do we host training? Do we provide training? Why are we doing it for free? Are we providing curriculum in school? Or why are we doing that for free? Or are we acting as the advisory board for another person's grant? If so, why are we doing it for free? Right? Are there things that we have? Do we have space that we can rent out? Do we have space that we have things that we could let other people use for a fee? Have we looked at designating certain lines, such as, for example, depending on how the opioid funds are distributed in your state, we have some coalitions that we work with where the money goes to at the very local level, meaning at the city or village level, and the coalitions have been able to successfully get them to designate those dollars for the coalition or for the work of the coalition, right? So it's other coalitions have been able to generate income from that. We have one coalition up in Minnesota that actually generated income from porta potty fees, right? They began looking at ways to facilitate additional revenue for the coalition, and they looked at their largest drinking event in this rural county of middle of nowhere, Minnesota, and it was their big summer concert series, and they generated something like $20,000 a year because of just tacking on $5 to porta potty fees. And people need porta potties when they do these events, so they're not going to balk at the $5 increase for the porta potty fee, right? So the revenue doesn't always have to be tied to the mission, right? At this point, it's just looking at what can be increased, what's logical, what has the least amount of, what's going to push the least amount of impact onto the citizenry. If you don't have a porta potty, you're not going to pay the porta potty fee, right? Only those people pay having that are going to pay that fee. Others look at it from a line item standpoint, right? So in conversations with, the Finger Lakes people were talking about this, that some coalitions have been successful in getting a line item in the budget for their local municipality or their health department or their county government. And I'm a huge fan of starting with a zero-based line item, meaning like I like going to municipalities and saying, I don't need you to give me any money right now. That comes later, but I want you to put me in your budget as a zero-sum line item, because I want to be able to have the opportunity to tell you all the great things we're doing in the community, all of our outcomes, all the great things we're doing as part of your normal conversation that you have around money and why we're a good investment without you necessarily investing in us right away. And we typically find this is a very easy approach to get into in front of people. It's like, what, you're not asking us for money? No, but we still want to be part of your budget. Just don't give us money yet. And then once we start those conversations, then they see that empty line item. They're like, well, why aren't we giving you money? Right? You've been talking to us for several years now. It makes sense, right? Because it does. It forces us as coalition people to have that conversation with the decision makers, with the money people, about your work during the money conversation without making them say yes or no to give you money. And then there's this idea of social enterprises, right? So social enterprise is basically you're looking at creating a business line with the intent of making money, right? Because nonprofits can make money. You just can't pay your board of directors, right? That's the difference between a for-profit and nonprofit, right? You can't pay your board of directors, but you can make money. You can charge people for money. So are there opportunities to create a social enterprise? The obvious one is the clothing store or partner, or those of you who have space. Do you rent your space as an event-based space? Do you have the capacity to start sponsoring trainings, or and then use that as your social enterprise? So really looking at expanding lines of, looking at your work and expanding your lines of business with the intent of making money, with the intent of bringing revenue into the organization, which is actually the flip side. So if you think about charge and earn, charge is the intent, right? It's our plan to make money. And then we move to the earn strategy, or what earn really means. You're going to earn. Earn is the financial outcome of our charge strategies. Were we successful, right? And a couple ways to begin thinking about this is that, one, are we building in profit to the work of the organization? So when we're bidding on work, when we're asking for money, if we're doing fees for service, are we building in a profit margin into the work that we're currently doing, right? And are we monetizing our current work and assets for profit, right? So if we're doing trainings, are we just doing trainings as a break-even standpoint? Are we doing trainings with the intent of building a little bit of profit margin? Are we taking, if we are our own fiscal agent, are we taking our own admin fees, right? Admin fee is one way to begin thinking about monetizing your work and building in profit for your work, because admin is now 15% of federal grants, and most of you aren't spending 15% on admin, right? But that 15% becomes unrestricted dollars. Once it's in your bank account, it becomes unrestricted dollars, right? But there's a flip side to it, right? Because if you have rent, you got to pay your rent out of it. If you have fiscal people, you got to pay your fiscal people out of it. But for many of us, we don't even think about taking the flat 15%. We just do everything as direct. And I would encourage you to look at that differently, to say, if we took the 15%, will we be spending the full 15% on the things that it should be spent on? Or is there a slight profit in that if we do take it and don't do it direct? So charge is our intent and our process of making money. Earn is the actual result of it, right? So it's a monetization. It's a building into the profit and the realization of the profit, but through the implementation of charge strategies.
Which group would like to go first? I don't know.
I'll go.
Okay,
I'll
go ahead,
go.
Virgil.
I'll go first for our group since Kelly threw me out under the bus there. At any rate, some of the things we did in the past in terms of funding, one of the ways we would raise funds is let the youth themselves be the fund, the person to be the spokespersons. We've taken our youth to different places to do presentations to some of potential funders, and you couldn't ask for a better promotion of what we were doing. I give an example. We took them to one place, and we had them to do the presentation, and then the group gave them $10,000, and so I say, well, this will work. We'll keep doing that. Another group thing we normally would do, we partner with another organization in terms of shared earning, and we did had a tremendous fundraiser with them at the right in the city of Annapolis, where not too far from the Naval Academy, and I was just shocked how much money that was raised by just sharing with this organization. But we can do better. I mean, I'm never satisfied in what we're doing but I will say being part of a nonprofit makes it even better, because our minds is always focused on finding other ways of raising funding. So then somebody else had a good point. I couldn't remember because I was still shocked that I was thrown under the bus here. So at any rate, she was grateful that she could share her experience.
I think Donna spoke about a partnering organization that has a similar mission, working together to raise funds through a race, and then they've been sort of brought under the umbrella to be able to share resources. And I'm not sure if I got that right.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Yes, that there was another organization that had very similar goals, similar mission, and we've partnered with them. So it was a matter of a good fit at a good time.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think that sometimes we forget that asset sharing piece sometimes, and it gets swept under the rug, but definitely it's a good way to spread the funds around, save some money in different ways. All right, did we miss a group?
Oh,
Laura?
we had
Okay,
a
go ahead.
question in our group. I was with Laura.
Mhm.
So when Deacon talks about the 15%, we had some questions like I put in the 15% in one of our grants, but I only request funds for monies that we've spent that I think are indirect costs. Are you saying we're allowed to just ask for the 15%? And is that 15% of the total or 15% of like that week or month's request?
It's 15% of everything you draw down.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So you're allowed to make a profit on the 15%?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Because it is considered now. You can't. So if you like the 15%, you can't budget for rent. You can't budget for fiscal or accounting. You can't budget for HR payroll. Right. So everything that goes into that, if you don't spend all that on those items, then whatever you have left over is yours. That's the reason they do it. It's an admin, and they put all that money, all those categories inside that. So you can either choose to break it out, right, and not take the 15%, or take the 15% and manage it better.
We did have a comment in the chat. Emily shared they have a lot of nonprofits in their area, and we have started meeting as executive directors. And when we began looking for a development staff, I asked the group of executive directors if they had someone good who wanted more hours and could work for us, and or we could share the hiring of one person together. So again, kind of that like asset sharing piece, definitely. We'll go ahead and hand it over to Kelly to wrap us up. I know we have like 10 more minutes. So Kelly, if you want to go ahead.
All right, so we're going to chat a bit about case statements. Who here has a case statement? Whose organization has a case statement? Anybody? Anyone have a case statement that they didn't write specifically to report into DFC Me?
Can you remind us what that is? What the heck?
So a case statement is basically sort of your pitch as to why people should give you money or why they should invest.
Okay,
invest in you, right?
Okay, pitch. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yep, your sales pitch.
Okay, yeah, I can now understand.
Yeah. Think back to your shoe selling days.
Yeah, but we wrote one. I cannot say what it off the bat, but we did do one.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Because I know it's part of DFC Me reporting. So
right.
There is a section that says case statement. But I want you to sort of think about the strategies we just discussed, and this statement is sort of your pitch to who you're asking for funding from, but it's going to be slightly different based on who you're asking. So the first thing as you're developing this case statement, what are the reasons they should be supporting your organization? What are you bringing to the table? What happens if you're not there? So what's going to be lost if they're not going to contribute to supporting you? Why the resources needed? So what are you doing with those resources, those funds, that asset sharing that you would be getting? You don't want to go to someone and just say, "Hey, give me $5,000," right? What's your case for why they should give you $5,000? Thinking about how it will help. Right? What good is it going to do? And making sure you're relating that good to the person or the organization you're asking funds for, right? You're not going to go to, someone, and I'm trying to think of a good example right now, just off the top of my head, but, you're not going to go to someone who isn't really interested in youth programming and say, "Hey, we want you to give us money for programming, and here's why." And they're like, "Cool, we don't care about that." So making sure you're connected, the who it will help to the group that you're asking funds for, or the support from. Let them know who else is involved or who else is supporting your organization. People like to invest in success. And if they see others investing in you, they're more likely to be drawn into supporting you. And then making sure you're sharing if it's cost effective. By doing this, we're saving X amount of dollars down the road that might be used for other things. SAMHSA had a study, 15 years ago about the investment in prevention, saves, what was it, $9? Something like that. It's a very, very old study, and I haven't seen anything new nationally. Thinking about, how can these funds be used in a way that's cost effective? But things to think about as you're writing these statements. You want to be clear and to the point. You're not looking for like a 3-page, summary on the coalition and all the amazing things your nonprofit does. You want to be straightforward. Don't use any prevention jargon. We can all rattle off a bunch of different, acronyms, but you're not going to want to put, the SPF or, 7 strategies or any of those sorts of languages in your case statement, because for regular people, they're not going to know what you're talking about and it's going to feel over their head. And as I said earlier, make sure it's relevant to their concern. So what do you care about? And this kind of gets back to, I believe Jerry mentioned a group has sort of done, I would say, a dossier on all their board members. They know who they work with, they know their friends, they know where their wife works. And so looking into it and saying, these are the things that these people care about. And so let's make sure our case statement is connected to that. And so those are some sort of brief highlights of what a case statement is and the things you need to think about as you do it. But your case statement is going to be different for the different asks or shares or charges. And so, you might want to come up with an elevator speech, right? Generally, this is who we are, but then that case statement jumps into here's what we want and why.
So Kelly, if I could
Silly
add to that, one of the
question.
things that we find effective with our case statements is it depends on who we're talking to. So it varies from presentation to presentation. We start off in a place of looking at the mission and vision of the organization that we're talking to and looking at our case statement and making sure it aligns with them. At least it starts at a point of in agreement and people listen to what we're saying. Even and sometimes they need a refresh on their mission and vision in case statement, but it turns out to be a very effective strategy, particularly with legislators. And it's easy to go back and look at their publicly stated position on committees and in social media. It's well documented, even if they're doing it just for the votes, they're on the record for it.
Did somebody else have something they wanted to chime in on?
Yeah, Kelly, I just had a question. It's Bria. What are you saying K? Like, what does the K stand for? I'm from the development world, but not grant world. So are you saying K is the letter K?
Case
Statement? Case.
like your
statement.
case.
Case statement. Okay.
CASE. So making the
Got it.
case for why
Case. Making the
Yeah.
case. Okay.
Sorry.
It sounded like K. I'm like, okay, what is K stand?
what are you talking about, Kelly?
I'm reminded of when you go looking for a grant, like from a foundation or any grant, you get to take a look at who they fund, what kinds of service. It's kind of similar, but you definitely got to do your homework, kind of build on Howard's point there.
Yeah.
Your homework in terms of, and you also, who's the best person to make the pitch? It may not be your exec. It might be a member of your board. The exec may go with the board member, but you sort of got to think who's going to make the best case presentation to
Or
the
even the
audience.
youth, like Virgil was saying too.
Could be, yeah.
So we just have a couple of minutes left. Are there any questions? Because I think we have one more slide after this. So we're going to host one more webinar. I don't remember the date, Jess. Is it the 20th? No.
No, the 22nd, April 22nd.
Okay, so I got the right week. So on the next session, we really want to focus on it being a community share. Less talk from us, but focused on you guys collaborating with each other. And so we'd like for you to think about, what do community members think is the role of your organization in your community? If someone were to hear like, oh, WIN, okay, this is what WIN does, right? What do people actually think of your work? Do they immediately default to, oh, they do substance use prevention? Or is it like, I don't know, they talk about kids, right? So what's how do people think about you in your community? And then also come prepared with a specific sustainability activity, and be ready to discuss your plan for it based on the strategy. Jess will be sharing these slides. So take a look and then say, okay, well, we really want to think about, how do we share a position? Kind of like what Emily mentioned, sharing development staff person. Or, hey, we really want to get it to be a line item in our town's budget. Look at the worksheet that you're going to receive and think about it before the next webinar. So it's about a month away. But those are the 2 asks we would like for you to complete before coming to that session. Nobody's kicking you out if you don't do it, but it would be very helpful for you to do these things in order to actively participate. So you'll be getting these slides to have a reference point and as well as a worksheet. And we've got a couple minutes left, but we were, really happy you were here for this discussion. It's great to hear from what other people are doing around this. And just as a reminder, sort of grant seasons picking up in some funding areas. And so we offer grant outlines. We're happy to review any grant proposals that you're working on, help develop the evaluation response to it. We also can provide some one-on-one TA about sustainability, providing sustainability training for your coalition and facilitating that process or your organization. Basically just ask, hey, we're thinking about this, just ask, we're happy to help. And if we can't do it, we're going to connect you to the people who can. Just ask us for what you need or what you think you need. And so that's it for us. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to add?
I don't see any questions coming in the chat, but we will go ahead and hang on for a little bit, but you guys feel free to hop off. Thank you all for joining us today. I will make sure to get out the slides and the worksheet. So thank you all for coming.